Welcome to Survivor Angels, Lightcast edition. Okay, everybody, I want to talk about something today that I think a lot of people are experiencing right now, especially people who are aware or, intuitive, spiritually open, maybe even emotionally deep. Those people who really quite genuinely care about healing and alignment and becoming more conscious in how they live. And it's in this quiet exhaustion when you start trying too hard to stay connected. How many of you are exhausted right now? hmm I've been going through that. I'm kind of like riding a roller coaster right now. And not trying too hard in an obvious way is what I'm talking about. This is all very subtle. You think that you're kind of being coy about this. It's about not forcing yourself into some big old dramatic spiritual practice every hour of the day. I mean, the quieter kind of effort, the internal monitoring, it's the constant checking of yourself. It's kind of like wondering, am I aligned right now? Because why don't I feel connected today? Or why did I feel so clear last week, but not today? What changed? What am I missing? And what's really difficult about this is that most people don't even realize they're doing it. I do. I'm way too hard on myself because I'm an overthinker. At first, it feels just simply like awareness. You start paying attention to yourself more. You notice your energy more. You become more conscious of your emotions and your intuition, your reactions, your body, even your spiritual life. How about your alignment? And in the beginning, that awareness is actually very healthy because you're waking up to yourself in a way you maybe weren't before. But then somewhere along the way, for a lot of people, awareness slowly turns into self monitoring. You don't have an ankle bracelet on you, people. And self monitoring eventually turns into pressure. And pressure changes everything. You know what happens with a pearl? Same kind of deal. I think one of the biggest misconceptions that people have about alignment is that they imagine it as a permanent state that they're supposed to maintain once they've found it. Like, once you finally feel connected, now your job is just to stay there. So when that feeling naturally shifts, which it does for everyone, people panic internally. And I see a lot of that going on right now. It's like, oh my God, I had it. Where did it go? Oh my God, something shifted. Why did it shift? I don't know what I did. Tell me what I did. And they think I lost it or I'm disconnected. I'm doing something wrong. I was closer before and I need to get back there. Do you really? There's other forces at play here. And what I've noticed is that the attempt to get back into alignment often creates more disconnection than the original shift itself because we're trying too hard, because now there's tension involved, because simply you're trying, where before you never would have thought twice about it. Now you're evaluating every feeling you have. Now you're subtly pulling yourself out of the present moment to measure how spiritually connected you are inside the present moment. And that creates fragmentation inside. I remember going through lots of periods where I had felt incredibly open for several days or weeks or maybe even months. Not euphoric, not emotionally high, just really deeply connected in a very steady, grounded way. Life felt clearer. My intuition was, ooh, like super sharp. My energy felt calmer. And even the way that I interacted with people felt different. There was less resistance in me. I didn't have that sandpaper feeling rubbing in there. And honestly, one of the things I notice when I'm truly aligned, listen to this for those of you who know me, is that I stop overthinking myself. Uh huh. That can happen for all of you thinkers, knowers out there. There's less internal noise when you're aligned. You're not overthinking. I'm not constantly evaluating every feeling or every interaction or every decision. I'm just simply present. And during this particular time, I remember thinking at one point, I wish I could just stay in this space. And almost immediately, something shifted. Not dramatically, but enough that I noticed the difference. The openness I had been feeling started becoming more mental, more self-conscious. Instead of simply being connected, I became aware that I was connected and then immediately became afraid of losing it. And once that happened, I started monitoring myself. The ankle bracelet went on. Was I still feeling it? Was it fading? Why did it feel quieter? What changed? And the more attention I placed on trying to maintain the feeling, the less natural it became. How many times have you heard me say, you can't force it? Because that moment taught me something really important. Connection cannot fully settle where pressure exists. Where you're forcing, that's pressure. And I think this happens to more people than we realize, especially people who genuinely care about growth. Because when you've experienced deep connection, you just naturally want to return to it. You want to feel the clarity again, that openness. Ooh, that peace, and that certainty. But what people often don't realize is that alignment is not something you force yourself back into. I can't say it enough times. You can't force this stuff. Alignment happens when resistance softens. And resistance can actually come from trying too hard. I know we want to feel warm and cozy and comfortable, but you can't force that place. Sometimes I think people imagine alignment as this highly elevated spiritual state where you feel peaceful and intuitive and emotionally balanced every moment of every day. But honestly, some of the deepest alignment that I've ever experienced has felt incredibly ordinary. Quiet mornings, simple conversations, driving somewhere in complete calm, laughing very naturally with someone. It just flows. Being fully present without analyzing myself. That's alignment too. And sometimes it's even more real than the intense spiritual experiences that people chase. Oh, I've chased mine. I'm sure you've chased a few of yours, or if not, you're going to, because intensity and alignment are not the same thing. A powerful spiritual moment can absolutely be real and transformative, but alignment is often much quieter than people expect. It's because we're so used to all the drama screaming at us out here in the world. But rather, it simply feels natural. It's about remembering the natural. It's about bringing that back out of yourself. And because it feels natural, the mind sometimes overlooks it completely. One of the things I've had to learn, and honestly continue learning, is that awareness is healthy, but hypervigilance is exhausting. Many of you know that I um, live with CPTSD, complicated PTSD. That brings on hypervigilance. And for those of you who also live with that, you know how exhausting that can be. And it's the same thing with this naturalness. Once the awareness moves into this place of hypervigilance, and there's a difference between the two. Awareness feels open and hypervigilance feels tight. Awareness notices where hypervigilance monitors. Awareness allows experience, and hypervigilance evaluates experience while it's happening. And when people become deeply focused on healing or spirituality or self development, they can unintentionally move into this state where they are constantly scanning themselves internally, constantly checking. Am I okay? Am I aligned? Why do I feel off today? Did I lose something? Was I more connected before? And over time, that becomes exhausting to our nervous system because you're never fully resting inside yourself. You're always measuring yourself. I think underneath a lot of this is fear, not surface fear. It's a deeper fear. The fear that if the feeling changes, the connection is gone. The How do I want to say this? The fear that if clarity becomes quieter, something's been lost. The fear that maybe you were connected before, but now you're not. And I understand that fear because I've experienced it too. But one of the deeper truths I've come to understand is that connection does not disappear every time your emotional state changes. It doesn't. Sometimes your awareness simply changes form. Changing form is okay. Sometimes life gets louder for a while. Sometimes your mind gets more active. Oh my God, I have a gerbil. Many of you have gerbils too, I'm sure. Sometimes you become emotionally overwhelmed or physically tired. That doesn't mean all connection is gone. And honestly, some of the deepest spiritual growth happens when you stop needing constant emotional reassurance in order to trust what you already know. It goes back to trusting yourself. This is also where angelic presence becomes very meaningful to me personally. Because one of the things I notice consistently about angelic energy is that it never feels frantic. There's no panic in it, no pressure. Um, No urgency, demanding perfection. That's not how the angelic guidance and connection works. When I genuinely feel supported spiritually, it feels steady, spacious. There's a calming quality to it that actually pulls me out over monitoring myself, pulls me out of it. It brings me back into the moment I'm actually living instead of one that I am trying to recreate. And sometimes the most profound moments of angelic connection happen after I stop trying so hard to force myself into a certain state. Not because the connection suddenly appeared, but because I finally became still enough internally to notice what had been there the whole time. I want you to think for a moment about how exhausting it is to constantly evaluate yourself, not just spiritually, emotionally too. To constantly wonder, am I healing enough, growing enough, aligned enough, connected enough, all of those things. That kind of internal pressure quietly drains you. There's no exceptions to anybody out there either, by the way, if you're thinking that. And I think that many people have become so used to that pressure that they don't even recognize it anymore. They think tension is normal. Tension is not normal, but real connection actually feels safer than that. It feels more grounded than that. You'll find there's more room to breathe inside it. And this is important because life is not meant to become one long spiritual performance. Oh my gosh, our brains would actually start fighting us. They actually kind of do. It's okay to simply live. You are allowed to simply live. You are allowed to have ordinary days. A little boring? Well, embrace the boring. You are allowed to laugh and rest and be human without turning every emotional shift into a spiritual problem that needs to be analyzed immediately. And honestly, I think some people disconnect from themselves because they become too mentally focused on getting back to alignment instead of simply allowing themselves to be present where they are. Because presence, not perfection, is what reconnects you. Mhm. I've noticed something else too. The more mature alignment becomes, the quieter it often feels. It's natural. In the beginning, spiritual connection can feel intense because you're becoming aware of things you hadn't noticed before. But over time, the experience often becomes steadier. It's less dramatic, less emotionally overwhelming, and it's more integrated into your daily life. And sometimes people mistake that quiet steadiness for losing connection when actually they're becoming more grounded in it. So, if you've been feeling disconnected lately, I want you to consider something gently. Maybe you're not as disconnected as you think. Maybe you're exhausted from trying to monitor your connection constantly. Maybe you've been trying so hard to recreate a feeling that you stopped noticing the quieter forms of alignment already present. The calm moments, the honest moments, the grounded moments, the moments where you fully feel yourself without needing anything extraordinary to happen. That matters. The ankle bracelet doesn't matter. And maybe today, instead of trying to force yourself into alignment, you simply let yourself breathe for a moment without evaluating whether you're doing it correctly. Maybe you stop asking yourself every 5 minutes whether you're spiritually connected enough. Stop it. Maybe you allow yourself to trust that connection can still exist, even when it feels quieter than it once did. Sit with the quiet because I honestly believe some of the deepest peace people experience comes when they stop gripping themselves so tightly internally. Alignment is not something you achieve once and then maintain perfectly forever. It moves, it deepens, it softens, it changes form. And your job is not to force yourself into a permanent spiritual state. It's actually impossible. Your job is to remain honest and aware and present enough to recognize yourself within whatever moment you're in. Because connection is often much closer than you think. Not hiding, not gone, just quieter than the pressure inside your mind. The moment you stop trying so hard to feel aligned, maybe the moment you finally notice how much connection was already surrounding you, supporting you, and quietly waiting for you to relax enough to recognize your alignment. Stop trying so hard. Just let it be. Activate your angels.
Thanks again for joining Chaplain Jody on Survivor Angels. For more information, go to chaplainjody.me. That's chaplainjody.me. And on Facebook at Survivor Angels-Chaplain Jody. Sound effects for the show created by Andre Opate and provided by Pixbay. This is Dave Schrader. Until next time, sending you off to activate your angels.